I'll introduce the participants of this video conference. First, Martin Johs Melwer.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Perfect.
I don't know.
That's right.
So Martin, you are the editor-in-chief of Swann Studio, Denmark. Okay. Is it in Copenhagen?
Yes, that's right. It's based in Odense, actually, the third biggest Danish city.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. So actually, I have never been to Denmark, but Denmark is very well known to Korean readers because of Andersen's tales. So when I grew up, I really loved Andersen's tales, and so Denmark is not unfamiliar to me. It's a very familiar country, although I have never visited there. Okay, and the other participant is Ms. Jo Ji-sun. She is the team manager of development strategic team of 웅진 Publishers, one of the biggest publishers in Korea, and especially 웅진 is famous for publishing children's books. So I think Ms. Jo will tell us her experience and her publishing strategy. And beside her, we have Nam Dan Mi. She belongs to foreign rights team of 웅진 Publishers, and she will help Ms. Jo with some English. Okay. So let me introduce myself. I'm not a publisher. I'm a university teacher. I'm a professor of literature at Seoul National University in Seoul, Korea. And I joined Korean Publishers Association 3 years ago to help establish Korean Publishers Research Institute. So now I'm the director of Korean Publishers Research Institute, and I'm also a member of the Freedom to Publish Committee at International Publishers Association. So I'm very happy to be here and to meet you, Martin, in Denmark, and you, Ms. Jo from 웅진 Publishers. Okay, so let's do this like this. First of all, Martin will present your talk for just 20 minutes. And then Ms. Jo will talk about her presentation another 20 minutes. And then we will discuss. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so...
that sounds really good.
Yeah, Martin, so will you please begin?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, another buffering. Your screen is frozen. Oh.
Yes, very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your screen is frozen.
Okay. Well, I think I'll just have to. If the sound is coming through, we'll just have to live with the delay.
Oh, we have bad connection. Your voice is not audible. You are supposed to talk about audiobooks here, but not so good. The technical team, our conference, and they try to fix it. Okay, now your screen is very good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I will try to talk slowly so that too much isn't lost.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much for having me. I'm pleased to be present. Albeit this is quite a presence at the SIBF. I hope that I can be with you in the actual flesh at some point in the future. I would just like to add a few more about myself and the company I work for. And then I'll talk about our primary markets in Scandinavia before I move on to talk about our vision for the future. Swann Studio is a family-owned audiobook production company and publisher that was started by my father along with a business associate back in 1983, actually, here in Odense, Denmark, which also happens to be the birthplace, actually, of Hans Christian Andersen. My father is an actor, and he very fittingly actually started out with a complete narration of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales in 1982-83. And he also chose to name the audiobook company that he started Den Grimme Ælling, which is actually the Danish title of the very famous fairy tale, The Ugly Duckling, by Hans Christian Andersen. And for about 20 to 25 years, the audiobook company, then known as The Ugly Duckling, had a steady production of around 300 titles a year, all in Danish. At that time, we worked almost exclusively out of a handful of studios in Denmark. And I'm actually talking to you right now from here in Odense, and I have a narrator sitting in the studio right next door who has a deadline today. She just told me. Luckily, we have some great sound isolation here, of course. And now we had steady sales for many years to the libraries, which pretty much kept us afloat. And for those first many years, we would acquire all rights to all of the titles that we worked with. However, the entire, as some of you probably know, the entire landscape of audio changed dramatically a handful of years ago, and the second generation happened to take over at our company at just about the same time when the boom in subscription-based streaming of audio titles took off in Scandinavia, mainly driven by Storytel, who I'm sure that most of you would already know about, the biggest international streaming-based service that is based in Sweden. And we managed to catch that wave, and we have continued to publish titles for ourselves, but now we are also, and actually mainly, a production company. And our increase in production has actually, or in production volume, has made us one of the biggest independent audiobook production companies in the world. And I myself have an academic background as well. I've studied comparative literature, and I've published a few novels, and I've taught creative writing. And since 2013, I have narrated more than 350 audiobooks as well. I was actually working right here in the studio earlier this morning. It's still quite early here in Denmark. I know that I guess I'm keeping you all awake late at night. I apologize for that. But anyway, so I started narrating in 2013, and I then moved into our offices, our headquarters in early 2017, where I have become sort of the leader of the publishing department, working with both hands-on editorial work and with the editorial strategy, both here in Denmark and in our main market in Scandinavia, but also internationally. And so I would say that very background, having studied literature and then taught writing and also written a few novels and narrated, gives me sort of a many-faceted insight into the audiobook business and what the situation is like, both from the perspective of the author, the narrator, the publisher, and the production company. So more than only being someone who's out to sort of sell a product like an audio production from our own company perspective, I see myself more as a general advocate for audio and for sort of the orally transmitted storytelling. Also, I because my father started the company when I was 3 or 4 years old, I would go into one of our studios, and I was allowed to sit there and just sort of improvise and have it recorded on real tapes. And someone at the company would transfer the sound to audio cassettes, and I would sort of make my own little homemade audio title even before I actually knew how to read myself. So I have it pretty much in my blood, and at first that encouraged me to want to pursue reading and writing. So there not being sort of a straight path into becoming an author, I decided to pursue the academic studies first. But then I ended up coming back into the family nest, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next. Thank you. Now, let me just see, does that fit with our... I don't know if you can see the entire slide on your screen, but I will just move on. Now, as it is now, nowhere in the world is as much content, audio content being made available as here in Scandinavia, and mainly in Denmark and Sweden. We're reaching a point now where more new titles are actually becoming available as audiobooks than are being printed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is, of course, a result of the market being as mature as it is here in our region. After all, the consumers in Denmark have been used to having a wide array of available audiobooks in the libraries since the mid-80s. And listeners now actually expect a new title to be available as an audiobook, if not preferably simultaneously with the printed book, and if not, then soon after. So most publishers will be bombarded by potential listeners who are frustrated if the title isn't available soon after the official date of publication. And also, publishers have realized that audiobooks can revitalize their backlist. Some companies, like here in Scandinavia, Saga, the digital branch of Egmont, who is a really big publishing group too, I'm sure some of you know them, they are investing aggressively in sort of high volume production, also in many international markets, also based on the numbers that we're seeing here in the region and on the global potential. But also because they realize something that I'll get back to later, which is that, of course, when you move into new markets that aren't as mature as the markets that we have here, you definitely need for there to be content before you can attract the listeners, of course. Another thing is that more and more original audio content is being made. Original and exclusive material titles that are only becoming available as audio. And to a large extent because it can attract listeners to audio streaming sites in the same way as original content can for Netflix or HBO, etc. And as it is now in Denmark, we're seeing a steady annual growth of the audiobook market, although it is quite mature already. We're seeing an annual growth of around 20%. It's been like that for quite a few years. And here audio is also making more than twice as much as ebooks. And so arguably, I would say that the way things are now, where we're seeing a decrease and a struggle in Denmark as well as in most parts of the world with printed books, you could say that what printed books lose, audiobooks gain. Next. Okay. There seems to be a slight, yeah. Okay, now you get some of the, you have some of the data on the screen that or some of the text on screen about what I just talked about. So I think we could go to the next one as well now. Yes, there we go. I think it's just been split up in 2 slides. I'm sorry about that. Might be a mix-up on my behalf. I apologize. So anyway, I argue that what printed books lose, audiobooks gain. In Sweden, more than half of all book consumption now actually comes from digital streaming itself. I mean, so streaming sites provide half. That it does not mean half of the revenue, but half of the consumption, which of course is quite significant. And our company also now produces more news suites than we produce in any other language, and we produce in 14 different languages now. And there's no doubt that this consumer behavior moving from print to audio is to a large extent fueled by mobile technology in particular. And also this has been a very special year. In the first months of this COVID-19 outbreak, which is also the reason why we're having this this discussion online now. In the first months of the outbreak, our company saw a consumption increase of more than 20%, and in some places, and here I mean on some sites, it was close to 50%. Readers or listeners, now of course this might be very obvious, but I'll say it anyway. Of course, readers and listeners were forced to stay inside, and they're spending more time online, and in most places it was actually impossible to visit local physical bookstores. And now, of course, I think that is tragic. I'm a person myself who does love to read actual physical books, and we've also seen actually the biggest local bookstore here closed completely because of actually the entire biggest Danish physical audiobook chain went bankrupt. So that is, of course, sort of a tragical flip side to the coin. So all shops without online sales suffered in particular, and physical book sales went down, as you would expect. But many then transitioned into digital consumption, as you would expect. And many of those who do that tend to hang on. It's dedicated readers do not ditch printed books, but tend to take on audio as a supplement to the printed material, the tactile book. The fear of audio cannibalization is widespread, and it's something that I really deal with on a, if not daily, then weekly basis. But much data seems to indicate that actually listening to audio motivates people to read more. So people who, if you come from a point of not really consuming fiction, or doesn't have to be fiction, consuming books, and you move into audiobooks, there's a bigger chance that you will also start to acquire and read more physical printed books. Also, our demographics are becoming increasingly all-encompassing. There's no doubt that older people used to be the main consumers of audiobooks, but younger users have taken over to a wide extent, and many publishers and new streaming sites, because in Denmark we're seeing another tendency, which is that although Storytel is a very significant player on the market, we have a wide array of actually surprisingly successful alternatives within streaming. And some of the new ones, for example, now just within these next few weeks, a big new streaming site made by 3 of the biggest Danish publishers will go online, and they are focusing very much on children's content, which of course is very interesting, because there is no doubt that providing quality content to children is of huge importance when it comes to sort of securing literacy and healthy reading habits in the future. Next. Okay. Now, when accessing or listening when accessing reading or listening material online, it is easier to engage readers in circles of mutual interest. That's another thing, to make them sort of feel that they're part of a community where they can exchange opinions and inspire each other to further reading or listening, which of course is a huge topic in itself. And I won't go too much into that now, but at Swann Studio, for example, we also have online groups. It could be at Facebook, for example, because now most Danes are on Facebook, where we have these groups where the narrators can and also do engage quite a lot with the listeners. And of course, the narrators are to audiobooks because they serve sort of as a mediators who connect the listeners to the books and the authors, often in a different way than they otherwise would have. And of course, it's a huge subject as well. There's a great, I've forgotten the name of the author, but there is a great book. I think it was it Harvard University Press who published it? But there's a book called The History of the Talking Book that also that sort of tells the history of audiobooks from the 1950s and up till a few years ago, where they also discuss sort of the difference between what it means to read or to listen, these different kinds of, and what it means sort of cerebrally and what it means to how you take the material in. But that's a more academic discussion, but I can really recommend that book. And also, studies have shown that even in engaging directly with other people through fictional stories in written form can help cure loneliness. And in this regard, audiobooks are also at least as beneficial as printed books, evidence shows. So I would say that creating and spreading meaningful content is perhaps more important now than it has ever been. As I guess, of course, we can have differing opinions when it comes to this, but mobile devices and the internet can be just as much a tool for separation and misinformation as it can be a tool for connection and enlightenment. And now an ever-increasing percentage of the global community is spending more time on their phones, time that, for example, would be spent reading books just 5 or 10 years ago. We need to do what we can to make this time spent behind the screen as meaningful as possible, which could, for example, be by making as many different voices and stories as possible available to as many people as possible in as many places as possible. So it is important that we realize and exploit how useful audio also is as as a tool for inclusion and diversity. Now, I know this is a huge subject, and I'm very well aware that you need to be in a position of some kind of privilege already to be able to access this technology, for example. But that's sort of another level of discussion that I won't go too much into right now. Next. Okay. Now, we are actually not far from being in a place where we can publish and distribute content in all relevant formats simultaneously in various languages across the world. And we at Swann Studio have made ourselves relevant to some of the largest publishing houses in the world by building a production infrastructure with premium narrators, but also new talent, because it's important to sort of have options at different price points for various reasons. But we've done this in several different countries, and this makes sense for those who work with international bestsellers or have big budgets to use on like different global strategies. So that's where we can be sort of a partner in if someone has a title that they need to produce in 7 different languages. But at the same time, we really focus very much on agility, which is something else that digital publication makes it easier for you to have, in the sense that we also take on publications if someone just writes to us or calls us with a manuscript that they've written themselves that they would like to have made as an audiobook. So from like private individual authors to some of the 5 big publishing houses, we sort of work across the spectrum. What we have done is we have cut down on the production cost at both our clients and our own end by focusing very much on developing software that can organize the workflow. So what we have is a platform, an app, where you as a publisher can simply upload a manuscript and metadata and await the completion of the audiobook with sort of many customizable steps in between. And then you can follow the process of organizing titles in our app. And also there are companies such as Beat Technology in Norway that have built a business on providing custom streaming platforms. So because I know this is what is keeping many people back, is the process of sort of getting started can seem sort of like a mountain that you have to climb. So the truth now is that as a publisher, you don't necessarily have to depend exclusively on streaming or sales partners such as Audible or Storytel, who are great for helping you sort of connecting listeners to authors, no doubt. But you can also start your own service and sort of maintain more control of your content in that way. Now, another thing is that in most markets, readers and listeners still generally favor localized content. And I feel this is also a bigger point of discussion about literature in general, but I really feel that we must be challenged. It's what I look for in literature, is being challenged and learning about things that you didn't know already, being challenged by new voices. But we must not forget sort of the confirmation of safe and relatable content. So we publish many very accessible crime novels and feel-good novels and such, but my idealism still makes me believe that we can actually, as I touched on before shortly, be a tool for sort of inclusion and pluralism and diversity. Next. And I'm getting near the finish now. But first, I have these big questions: what now, and what about the future? Now, audiobooks are, as we all know, booming across the world, and actually, the Scandinavian markets and the Danish in particular, are the most saturated in the world. And even here, we see publishers having a hard time sort of keeping up with the development. I said before that many are afraid of cannibalization, but actually, you can talk about listening as being sort of excuse the parallel, but sort of a gateway drug to reading. It does definitely also work the other way around. And I've read that about 15%. I don't know how accurate this data is, but about 15% of South Koreans have tried audiobooks, but more than 60% have considered trying audiobooks. And I do believe that this gap between accessibility and interest is evidence that there is a huge unexplored market there, as there is in most other parts of the world. We have a unique situation right here where I am. And it is a cliche, but I do in many ways believe that the future is now, and we all just have to tap into it and help make it blossom. The more titles that become available to listeners, the more the potential listeners will turn to audio. So it shouldn't be too daunting. Every little step really counts. Next.
I think that's the end.
Yeah.
I think that's the end.
Yes, it is. Well, I'm happy that I chose to keep this short because it did become longer than I thought is typical. But I hope that there'll still be room for discussion afterwards. And again, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you for your excellent talk. I think your career as an audiobook publisher is very unique. Yeah, from your childhood, you are very familiar with making audiobooks, right? And I found some points quite different from the situation in Korea. COVID-19 pandemic allowed you to allow the people in Denmark to consume audiobooks by more than 50%, but that's not the case in Korea. In Korea, publishers are struggling with the COVID-19 recession. So especially publishers and bookstores are struggling with the situation. So I think we have some questions to ask you. But before that, we will invite Ms. Jo to give her talk. Okay? So now it's your turn, Ms. Jo, to give your talk. Please begin.
Okay. First, I'll be briefing how 웅진თink started. Founded in 1980 under the name of Haim International, 웅진თink leads the market as the best education and culture company in Korea. We have been providing various educational contents for age groups such as home tutoring materials, picture book collection, trade books, and district contents through diverse sales channels. Back in 2014, 웅진თink has built a digital description platform called 웅진 Book Club. After the accomplishments of 5 years of 웅진 Book Club, we also launched the AI reading and learning project called SmartO through our advanced IT technology. Launching the first AI education product in Korea, we are leading change in education market. Okay, next. Let's look at the short clip.
This is 웅진თink, Korea's #1 company with the biggest membership in smart learning. Established in 1980, 웅진თhin크빅 leads the market as the best education and cultural company in Korea. 웅진თhin크빅 has built a membership platform service by digitizing 40 years of expertise in the Korean education market and has also introduced edtech technology into reading books and learning for all school subjects. Through joint research with Kidaptive in Silicon Valley, we have established an AI laboratory. And by launching the first AI product in Korea, we are leading change in the education market. 웅진თhin크빅 has implemented the most complete one and only AI education platform based on learning science by analyzing precisely 100 million data entries accumulated in milliseconds every single day. AI assists teachers in 3 steps so they can concentrate on coaching in a more effective way. Step 1. AI predicts the individual level of difficulty, the rate of correct answers, and the proper time to solve each question. Step 2. AI corrects learners' unsuccessful habits in real time. Step 3. AI provides a teaching guide based on AI analysis
Can you
reports
slow
of learning
down
data.
the speed?
AI
can't
helps
follow
learners
you.
to continue learning efficiently and to achieve learning outcomes. Professor Kim Min-gi and his team from
Okay.
KAIST have verified the effects of
little
artificial
bit slow
intelligence-based
down,
learning
please.
for the first time in the world. AI brings satisfaction to both teachers and learners through clear goal setting and feedback at each stage. Discover the joy of learning. That is what 웅진თhin크빅 EdTech is trying to achieve, and that's the way we are going to move forward. Thinking 10 years ahead for children. Number 1 in smart learning. 웅진თhin크빅.
Okay, next. Next page, please. Okay. In order to give children a new experience of reading, 웅진თhin크빅 established our own digitalized subscription reading platform, 웅진 Book Club, in 2014. Before its release, we have converted our physical books into digital format. Let me tell you how 6-year-old 웅진 Book Club makes a new concept of blended reading, a combination of online and offline reading activities. Next. Okay. It is every mother's desire to improve their children's reading habits and choose the perfect book. However, out of millions of books, it is not easy to pick up the right book for them. How about kids? It's far easy to access smartphone games, but I would say it's hard to finish the whole book. Considering all this, we created the largest virtual library where members can enjoy ebook, audio ebook, EPUB, and short clips wherever they are. As long as young readers hold SmartBook Pad in their hands, they can have their own mega bookshelf. Next page, please. Providing 10,000 contents from 200 international contents providers, 웅진 Book Club are categorizing various contents in different libraries. These libraries are also segmented by theme, age group, popular keyword, and next. In order to offer our members with high qualified contents, continuously we've actively work with global leading companies to license the exclusive contents only available in 웅진 Book Club. Though it's difficult to go to a library or bookshop because of coronavirus, children can freely navigate a sea of reading with 웅진 Book Club. Next. From now on, let me briefly explain our curation system. It is a reader's advisory system that recommends reading materials by theme, age group, and subject so that children can get exposed to various book genres. To suggest the right contents, group of experts working in this field for over 10 years choose high-quality book to make a content pool. Recently, our curating system has been updated to AI curation service that implements the big data accumulated by 400,000 members. Next. Let's move forward to see how members enjoy our curating system. This page shows must-read books for 4 different age groups: toddlers, preschoolers, primary school students, and teenagers. It also offers various digital contents, links to ebooks that children can read with interest. Next. It would be great to hear that pleasure reading impacts school grades in positive way. 웅진 Book Club operates school curriculum page that suggests ebook and digital content related to what they learn in school. Next. Here is the history page that helps children to learn history in easy and efficient way. And the image on the right is a smart reading page that teaches how to read books properly. Next. Let me present you our AI reading care based on the database from 120,000 daily activity users. In May 2019, we launched the AI reading care, which diagnoses individual level of reading comprehension skills and give advice on book genre child should read. Next. That is, AI reading care analyzes the reading pattern of the member and shows her or his most favorite and least favorite book genre. By making a recommendation on the list to read book genre, our system aims to help children to broaden their reading areas. Next. Our recommendation system strives to help members find a book to enjoy with minimal effort. It estimates the likelihood that member will read a particular title in our catalog based on the factors including their level of reading and other members with similar tastes. Next. We think it is important that children express their thoughts and feelings after reading. Okay. 네. 이거 전 페이지지.
이 다음 페이지가
그러니까.
이게 작품책이고 다음 페이지가
네, 페이지 순서가 조금 잘못된 것 같아서요. 지금 이 페이지 설명을 다시 한번 드릴게요. Okay. Our recommendation system strives to help members find a book to enjoy with minimal effort. It estimates the likelihood that member will read a particular title in our catalog based on the factors including their level of reading and other members with similar tastes. Next. Okay. We think it is important that children express their thoughts and feelings after reading. That's why 웅진თink and 웅진 Book Club provides members with numerous after reading activities. Members can review the storyline, those quiz games, express their thoughts by writing and drawing and recording using 70 designed templates. They can even save their work in their reading portfolio. Next, I would like you to experience our library and curating system.
열매와 채소. 채소가 뭘까? 채소로 만든 반찬이 뭔지 헷갈려요. 채소로 만든 음식을 찾아봐.
Okay, next. We have developed our interactive AR book line. Through following the story with AR effects, children can feel like that they are part of story because all their 5 senses are stimulated with this fun and innovative way of reading. Okay, next. Let's look at the short clip on how this works.
태양계 여행을 떠나보자. 멋진 행성들을 보여줄게.
신비로운
우주가 어딘지 모르겠다고? 하늘을 봐. 하늘보다 더 높이 올라가면 우주가 나온단다. 낮에 뜨는 태양도 밤에 뜨는 달도 모두 우주에 있어.
너도 소원 빌려고? 녹음 버튼 누르고 소원을 말해봐.
왕딱지 사주세요.
1조 97억 3290번째 소원 접수 완료.
태양계가 다시 돌도록 태양계야 돌아라 하고 외쳐볼래?
태양계야 돌아라. 정말 아름답다.
블랙홀 마커를 올려서 이리저리 움직여봐.
블랙홀이라니 이름도 무시무시하네요. 으아! 책이 블랙홀 속으로 빨려 들어가고 있어요.
숨 돌릴 틈도 없네. 지금 우주 탐사선 발사를 앞두고 있어. 얼른 우주 탐사선 색칠 마커를 색칠해 책 위에 올려주렴.
우와, 멋지다.
1단 분리
우와.
완료. 2단 분리 완료. 편안한 우주에 드십시오.
우와, 네가 우주 탐사선에 타고 있었구나. 우주복에 무전기가 달려있네. 오, 우주에 나온 김에 소원 하나 빌어야지. 화면에서 우주복에 달린 무전기를 터치해봐. 왕딱지 사주세요.
이번 우주 여행은 여기서 끝내자. 다음에 눈꽃별로 돌아가는 길에 또 재미난 우주 이야기 들려줄게.
재밌었어요. 블랙홀이 책으로 빨려가서 신기했고 완전 재밌었어요.
Okay, next. 웅진씽크빅 is upgrading our content through combining on an offline hybrid system. 21st Century 웅진 Encyclopedia is the key product, sold 6 million since 1998. After signing a MOU with National Science Museum, we service digital encyclopedia, which mixed content from our physical encyclopedia collection with public database. Next. It is far easier to achieve effective reading when kids becoming an independent reader. 웅진 Book Club has managed to increase children's reading by number of books and by time. Each member has read 10 times more books than the average and spent an hour each day. Next. Okay, it is quite easy to access ebook and digital contents nowadays. However, when starting this innovative but experimental subscription service, we should face a lot of challenges when digitalizing all our traditional contents. I think today's achievement that 웅진 Book Club has made is all dedicated to our goal to cultivate children's passion of reading. 웅진თhinkbig will continue to find ways to inspire children with what possible in reading for the future. Thank you for listening.
I think both of you will have a few questions to ask to each other. But before that, I'll ask a question to you both. 웅진's presentation is, in some sense, in contrast with Swann Studio. Swann Studio is an audiobook publisher, and of course, so audiobook is very important and in Swann Studio. But in 웅진 Book Club, audiobook portion is relatively very low, right? So I am curious why this difference takes place. So to elaborate my question to Martin first, you said audiobook is driving the digital market in Denmark, right? But I wonder, how about the ebook market in your digital market in Denmark? It's my question. Yeah. Will you please answer first?
Yes. Well, actually, things are going surprisingly slowly when it comes to ebook consumption here, but also we're seeing that it depends very much on, it is different depending on which content providers you're talking about. So we have, for example, we have audiobook. Now I'll mention audiobooks because that's sort of my point of expertise, but we have audio content providers who come from a background in as sellers, retailers of printed books, who are focusing more on the connection between different formats and sort of making sure that books are available in both the printed format and as an ebook and as an audiobook at the same time, because we also see an increasing number of consumers who are crossing over between the different formats. It can be someone who prefers to read a book at home and prefers to read on a tablet or a phone when they're commuting, and who wants to listen to an audiobook when they're working out, for example. But actually, we are having a lot of meetings these days about our sort of future strategy, and I feel that there are definitely probably going to be developments in technology that will move ahead so quickly in the near future that they can be available before the audiobook market has even developed in many parts of the world. So I think that keeping up with the development in AI or virtual reality or augmented reality and things like that is very important. And one thing that I really think is very cool about this children's book concept is definitely the element of interaction and sort of delivering a product that is both tactile and physical and digital at the same time. And I really feel that being sort of ahead of your game when it comes to these engagement hype is still and will be in the future very, very valuable. So, yeah, I don't know if that if you see that as an answer to your question, but I think that ebook pick up and become more here than it is.
Oh, okay.
Of an audiobook market. Sorry.
We have a little buffering, so will you please repeat again just what you said?
Yes. I think that it's a special situation here because we already had quite a mature audiobook market before the ebooks became a thing.
Okay. So one more brief question. So in your audiobooks, there are different types of narrators, I understand. So sometimes authors read their own books. Sometimes there are dramatized reading in your audiobooks. Am I right?
Yes. Well, we don't actually do that many sort of very dramatized readings. We see that is sort of a culturally different thing, even just between just crossing the short waters between Denmark and Sweden. We see that there's a difference between what kind of narrators the users want. But a short answer to the question would be yes, we have many different kinds of sort of narrating strategies for different books. But in this Scandinavian market, people often prefer, especially in Denmark, quite a neutral narration. I think that the listeners would say that gives more room for themselves in the story, so that they can so that they're not being guided along as much by the narrators. But there are other parts of the world where they a very dramatized narration is definitely favored.
I see. I understand. Thank you. So now, Ms. Jo, will you talk about something about your audiobooks in your 웅진 Book Club and their role?
네. 제가 한국어로 대답을 하고 남담미 씨가 영어로 통역을 해 주실 거고요. 웅진싱크빅에서도 지금 웅진 북클럽 같은 경우는 제공되는
She'll talk in Korean and Ms. Nam will translate it into English, okay? 네, 계속하세요. Go on, please.
웅진 북클럽의 전집들이 지금 웅진 북패드에서 재생이 되고 있고요. 그 컨텐츠들이 다 지금 이제 뭐 영상이라든지 오디오북화 돼서 제공이 되고 있는 시스템이어서 저희 북클럽 시스템 안에서는 웬만한 책들이 다 그 오디오북으로 재생된다라고 생각하시면 될 것 같습니다.
Okay, let me ask one more question. Your 웅진 Book Club is very impressive in terms of highly advanced technology and very well organized content. But I'm afraid that children may be absorbed in your very well organized digital content, and there is a danger that children will be influenced one-sidedly by the content of 웅진 Book Club. So, in a word, your book club may not be interactive enough, although you have interactive books on your screen. So, how will you answer my question?
네. 저희 지금 웅진 북클럽에서는 그래서 이제 그 한 회사의 책들로만 구성된다라는 거에 우려점들이 또 있을 수 있어서 웅진 북클럽 같은 경우는 이제 독서 플랫폼, 약간 새로운 독서 경험을 주는 플랫폼화를 하고 있기 때문에 이제 다양한 아까 제가 프레젠테이션 설명을 드렸지만 국내외의 다양한 출판사나 그다음에 그 방송사나 이런 콘텐츠들을 다양하게 저희가 소싱을 해서 또 제공을 하고 있기 때문에 조금 편협된 사고나 이런 것들에서 조금 더 벗어날 수 있지 않을까라는 생각을 하고 있고요. 다양한 그런 장치들, 아까 이제 인터랙티브 북도 말씀을 드렸었고, 다양한 독후 활동부터 시작해서 이게 뭔가 아이들하고 상호작용할 수 있는 부분들은 저희가 지속적으로 계속 고민을 하면서 업그레이드를 하고 있는 상황이어서 지금 교수님께서 말씀해 주신 부분들은 또 보완이 되는 부분이 있을 거라고 생각을 합니다.
Okay, thank you. And now I think you have questions to each other. So will you ask some questions to 웅진 and to Swann Studio? Okay, Martin.
Yes. Well, so the Ungin-Thinkpink now is, are you solely working with children's titles, or how big a percentage of your business is there?
네, 웅진싱크빅은 주로 아동, 영아부터 초등생 정도까지의 책들을 다 출판을 하고 있고요. 그리고 이제 저희가 단행본들이 있어서 단행본 같은 경우는 이제 성인 책들을 출간을 하고 있습니다.
So she says that almost all the products belong to children from toddlers to primary school children, but there are some portions that will produce printed books for adults. Yeah, so it's quite oriented to children's books.
But I think that there are definitely some points where now, Myung-Wang, you said that of course there are some differences between our what we're working on, but I really believe that this whole process of further engaging readers or listening after they've after or simultaneously with them being in the process of reading or listening is definitely something that can attract more children or attract more people in general, because I feel that there are many in children's project that can be transferred to adults as well in the longer run. So I guess that indirectly there is sort of asking, are you thinking about using some of these interactive elements more to target audiences as well? Just asking out of sort of curiosity.
네, 일단 웅진북클럽은 아이들 대상의 플랫폼이고요. 한국에서 지금 질문해 주신 것 같은 서비스를 하고 있는 업체들이 좀 많죠. 밀리에서재라든지 이제 그런 부분들이 있어서 저희도 이제 성인 책들도 있고 아동 책들을 기반으로 하고 있어서 그런 부분은 이제 추후에 추가적으로 진행해 볼 수 있는 부분이 아닌가 생각은 하고 있습니다.
네, 혹시 스완 스튜디오에 대해서 질문할 건 없으신가요?
아까 이제 그 어린이 컨텐츠, 어린이 오디오 컨텐츠들에 또 주목하고 계시고 많이 만드는 부분들도 주목하고 있다고 말씀 주셨는데, 저희도 이제 어린이 오디오북 서비스를 하고 있다 보니까, 그러니까 플랫폼을 따로 만들어서 서비스하고 있는 건 아니지만, 웅진 북클럽 내에서 오디오북 서비스를 진행을 하고 있기 때문에, 어린이북 관련돼서 오디오북을 만드실 때 어떤 부분에 가장 이렇게 좀 주안점을 두시는지, 그런 부분들이랑 이제 덴마크 시장에서의 어린이 그 오디오북의 성장 가능성 이런 부분은 좀 어떻게 생각하시는지 좀 궁금해요.
Yeah, she's wondering what is your main emphasis when you make children's audiobooks, and what's the prospect for future prospect for the children's audiobooks in Denmark? That's a question.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very interesting question. Definitely, it's a big question too. That's what we are. It's part of what we're really discussing. We've sort of set up a think tank these weeks where we are getting people together from sort of all aspects of our organization, discussing some of these future perspectives. But there's no doubt that the children's, as I said shortly in my presentation as well, that we are putting more and more emphasis on material aimed at children. I do feel that it has to some extent been neglected when it comes to audio production, because there's been so much emphasis in the educational system on the actual act of reading a more tactile, physical, printed book. And I feel that if there is one aspect of publishing in Denmark, or actually, in my perspective, globally, where there is the biggest potential for growth when it comes to audio, it is definitely within educational material. And of course, fictional content can also be very educational, and it does present you with publishers, be it of printed books or digital content of any sort, with many interesting opportunities. And we have seen some different big scale projects by big Danish publishing houses that have some of them have failed, but we're seeing sort of a re-emerging focus on children's titles. I hope that sort of answered your question.
Okay, so if we have any more questions, please go ahead.
Yes, I would actually like. Sorry, I would actually like to add that I believe that. Now, I was talking about educational material, but in many ways, I also just feel that, of course, it does matter to some extent what kind of material you're talking about. But I feel that getting children to engage with books, be it audiobooks or ebooks or physical books in itself across all genres, is already a victory. Anything that can help sort of children focus in that way has some sort of educational impact. So when I say that there's potential in educational material, I also believe that you just have to broaden your perspective on what it means for something to be educational.
Right. So yeah, to add my opinion, audiobook is a very nice space for children to stimulate their own imagination. So that's my personal opinion. In Korea, it's already past 9 p.m. I think now we have to wrap up this discussion. If you don't have any further question, let me finish it at this point. Is it okay?
Yes, well, I just want to say that I'm.
Okay, go ahead, Martin.
Sorry. I would just like to say that good luck with for all of you and with the Ungzinc concept as well. I'm sure that I would have loved to engage with it when I was younger, and I just wish you the best. And I would like to say thank you again for having me. And have a really
Thank
good
you.
fair. And thank you also to everyone else out there who's watching now.
Yeah. I hope
네.
we will be able to meet in near future in Seoul in person, overcoming
Yes.
COVID-19. So please be careful about your health.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And,
네.
we'll
저희도
here.
이렇게 온라인으로나마 같이 참석할 수 있어서 너무 영광이었고요. 좋은 시간이었던 것 같고, 수완 스튜디오도 이번 기회에 좀 이렇게 연을 맺었으니까 저희랑 또 이렇게 뭔가 기회가 되면 오디오북이나 이런 부분도 같이 좀 협업할 수 있는 기회가 있으면 좋겠다는 생각도 잠깐 해봤습니다. 감사합니다.
She says she will keep in touch with Swann Studio to get some information and make hopefully make some constructive business relationship between the two publishers. Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Also, I would also like to add that anyone out there who has any sort of question or anything they would like to know more about can feel free to reach out to me. My email address was there earlier, and as I also said before, I'm not going to try to push anyone into buying any product from us. I see it as a great privilege to be able to be an advocate for the industry in general. So I'm interested in everyone just creating more for themselves and each other through audio.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. See you again.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.